It's said that 90% of home buyers regret buying a home. And I'm saying, let's break that down. Let's see why they regret buying a home. And if you're trying to buy a home or you're thinking about it, well, what did they run into that was a problem? Let's talk about it. As a real estate agent here on the Gulf Coast of Florida, I can tell you from my experience and as an investor, actually putting my own money out there and bootstrapping myself all the way to where I am today, I'm going to tell you my experience, and hopefully you can learn something from this, or you can add to it in the comments section, because I like hearing y'all's opinions because there's some really good ones out there. And let's get right to it. I feel like there's a lot of half-truths on the information being put out about real estate. They kind of half-truth it just enough for you to click on it, but they don't really give you enough meat to understand why. 90% of homeowners supposedly in a poll said that they regret buying their house. It was up from like 82% last year. And they regret these things. The first one, location. Okay? And I will say this, don't buy a bad location. I'll also say this, don't worry so much about overpaying for a great location, because a great location is most important. Like if it's got the right school, if it's got the right water view, if it's got the right things that make the house worth it, that is something that's great. I just did a deal here in my neighborhood. Location was great. People were worried about overpaying, and I'm like, the location, you'll never get that view again, and it was worth it. Whereas if you get bad neighbors, you get near a busy intersection, you get near a railway. Hey, here's a story. I rented an apartment one time, and I rented it at night, and I didn't think about it. I just thought, hey man, it looks like a good apartment. How bad can an apartment be? And after the first night staying there, I woke up at 3 o'clock in the morning, and it was, as soon as the sun came up, I noticed I was right next to the mail distribution point for the U.S. Postal Service, and they were onloading and offloading mail, and this was going to be an every morning event. And I realized real quick, location. And when you can hear gunshots, when you can hear our train coming through, you can see the airport. There's a reason why they make you, in most states, put forth an addendum saying, hey, we're real close to an airport. We want to notify you before you sign on the dotted line that there is an airport. Hashtag don't sue us. There's a reason why they do that. It's because location and neighbors and rising waters, lock and dam, things that can be a very bad issue for your property can, one, degrade your property value, two, make living there a living nightmare. It can damage your personal belongings, or heck, you could get burglarized. These things greatly affect on whether you're going to be happy living there or not. I mean, nothing can scare you worse than waking up in the middle of the night to the neighbor's house getting filled full of bullet holes by an AK-47. I actually saw that happen, and it can happen. And you got to know these things before you get involved, and make sure you go to the crime statistics in your area. Make sure you go to the FEMA flood maps. Make sure you go and look at where the calls are dispatched from the sheriff's department, and you'll be able to see a heat map of where maybe you want to be and maybe you shouldn't. Go and look at the school zones. Go and look at all these things. But in the last 2 years, it was such a race to get a house that people were waiving all these things, and they were just wanting a house and wound up overpaying, and it created a whole scenario of events. But remember, location is the same thing in business as it is in real estate. And when you go to sell that house, that location is going to be your selling point and could make it hard to not be able to get out of it when you want to. I want to be very clear on this. Anytime you violate the rules of real estate, you're going to pay for it. You're going to pay for it monetarily. You're going to pay for it with repairs. You're going to pay for it just because of Murphy's Law. And throughout this time, these people that are really sad that they bought and they're regretting, they violated the rules of real estate. Either they had a bad agent that let them do it, or they were in a bad spot and they had to pay up for it. Those are Murphy's financial mistakes. You can't not do inspections. You can't not know the comparable value of a property. You can't overpay. You can't do a lot of these things that I've talked about in this video and am going to talk about in this video. You can't do these things. And all the videos I've made on never buy these type of houses and no insurance and understand insurance and understand repair values and how to do all these things, you need to watch those videos, because if you don't know those things when you go into a real estate deal, you're going to pay for it and you're going to regret it. And that's what we saw
with these people that are regretting buying a home. Look, buying a home is a great thing. It's a great investment. It's a place of solitude. It is your place where your peace of mind sits. But you have to go about it the right way, and that's what I've tried to teach all on this channel over these years. And you've seen me engage in real estate deals over and over and over again. So just make sure you follow the rules of real estate. If you don't know anything about real estate, research a good real estate agent with a good track record and go that way. But don't try to go it alone. You're going to pay for it. You're going to pay for it in not knowing the system or the process or not having a network or understanding any of the things that are going on. That's my theory on that.
As far as the bad neighbors, knock on doors, talk to the neighbors. Neighbors are nosy, and if you talk to the right one, they will tell you everything. But I will also say this, take that with a grain of salt, because sometimes the gossip mill is wrong. I see it in my neighborhood all the time. People just like to talk. Half the time they don't know what they're talking about. They're just talking. So just kind of like weigh one to the other. And if there is a problem, just go knock on that door and see how nice they actually are. They could just be your best friend. I tell you what, there's a drug dealer in our neighborhood, and he keeps the place clean. Keeps it quiet. He'll help you out any time. I stay out of his business. He stays out of mine. You know, sometimes that's just part of doing business. The sheriff's department's not going to do anything about it. Well, sometimes you just got to live with it. But I say that in saying, like, just don't take the gossip mill. Just know your neighbors or know them before you get in there, and you might not even have a problem. Now, if you have a bad one, well, that's going to be hard, make it hard to sell. If there's junk in the house, you know, yard next door, there's that old, I mean, there's 10 dogs and there's fleas everywhere and there's loud noises and screaming at night, well, don't buy that house. But in conclusion on that, don't have FOMO and say, I just have this fear of missing out of buying a house. Just use some common sense on it. The next one is high interest rates. You know, a lot of agents will say, hey, you can just refi later. Well, let's think about it. When you look at these deals, you got to look at multiple parts of the deal. Okay, if we have a receding market, are you going to be able to refi? Are you going to wind up like not having any equity to pull out? Okay, are you going to have to put more money down because the property's not worth as much now? Think about that. If interest rates do come down, which, you know, they were saying we're going to have a bunch of them this year, I don't think we're going to see that. I think we're going to have maybe one interest rate reduction or none, because they can't tame inflation. They got no idea what's going on, and I think it's hotter than what it is because you see the S&P 500 and real estate continually to go up. There's so many people moving like here to the Gulf Coast that I think prices are just going to stay the same. And once they start backing down interest rates, the market is going to go nuts. Stock market's going to go nuts. The doggone housing market is going to go nuts. Buyers are just going to come back in because if you watch my last video, interest rates did not solve the problem the Fed was hoping it would. It just created more problems, and it's a long story, but that's why I always say a lot of agents just don't know finance. A lot of finance guys don't know real estate, and you have the people matter in real estate. A lot of people just think it's going to go down, and the math's just not there. I always say prove it to me, and most people can't, because the Case and Schiller report says we're still going up, inventory is still not great, and there's still a lot of people wanting to buy houses, and people are getting discouraged, and they should, because it's a mess. You got corporations just zapping up properties. Hey, let me tell you something. The last lower value property I sold on the MLS, as soon as I stuck it on there, I was getting offers sight unseen from Miami, New York, California, Israel, Malaysia, Tokyo. Real estate is international now. It is a click of the button on the internet. And when people understand that, they realize, well, who's going to buy that house? I'm like a dude in his pajamas in Tokyo. And I'm like, now you know what we're dealing with. Or a guy in flip-flops in San Diego is going to buy that house because he just sold one for $1.2 million and it was a Cracker Jack box, and he's coming here and live on the beach for $1.2 million. Like, or he's coming here and living real close to the water for $500,000 and a really nice house that was bigger than the one he came from. That's who. So you got to look at this in multiple situations to kind of understand what's going on. There's not just one answer to both. It's not like economists and weathermen are the same. They're seldom right. And if you think you know what the real estate market is going to do, you don't know. It's like the stock market. It can stay irrational longer than you can stay solvent. And that's what real estate is. It probably even longer because it's a slow moving process. The last one, outgrow their home. They're all saying that they outgrew the home probably because they bought it during COVID to just get into something. And then they outgrew it because they've had a family since now, because a lot of kids were born during the you know what. So they're saying, okay, they outgrew it. They're trying to sell it. And like that could be it. I mean, I live in a small house. Everybody around here lives in a small house. I feel like our society feels like they're entitled to a big house. Well, you're entitled to what you can pay for and what you can finance and what you can, what's available. And even the little houses has gone up crazy expensive. Like 1,200 square feet used to be like the norm, and now it's considered small. I mean, my house was a 1,000 square feet before I started add on to it. And that's what they built back in the day. And people were happy with it. That was a big house in 1947. And it's like, our society watches so much HGTV that they just keep wanting a bigger house and a bigger house and a bigger house. And I'll say this, unless you're a wealthy person, big houses are built for the banks. They are a note to pay the bank. They are an obligation from you to pay the lender because you're slave to them. Because most people can't pay cash for their house. And I've always believed in paying cash for the house because I want it to be mine. I don't have to deal with the insurance company and play by their rules. I can play by my own rules, and that I can have homestead exemption and homestead protection and all these things that most people don't think about, because especially if you have a high chance of litigation, if you are in a business or a doctor or whatever, and you can be sued, you want some homestead protection. And in most states, that gives it to you, protection from creditors. So judgments. So not a lawyer, not a financial advisor. I'm just a real estate dude on YouTube trying to give you some opinions because nobody told me this stuff, and I had to pay a lot of lawyers a lot of money to figure this stuff out, and this is what they're probably going to tell you. So these are just my opinions. See you guys in the next video.